My name's Randy Crampton. I've been finishing since 1980. Been working for Axalta for the last 25 years. Today we're going to go through some sprayer training with you, teach you the proper techniques, some how to handle your equipment, and material handling, and safety. Safety's number one. We're going to start out spraying a no wipe spray stain. Proper agitation is very important. Without agitation, your color's not going to be right at all. Just make sure you stir, and stir, and stir, and stir some more. A good way of checking that you haven't stirred enough, check the bone of your stick. If you don't have anything on the bone of that stick, you're good. We're using the gravity fed cut gun today for training. Just put the amount of stain that you think you'll need to do the job. And now we're ready to go to spray run the spray. Now we're in the booth preparing to spray. When you're spraying, make sure that you always get your edges first. Spray with the grain with a 50% lap. We've already stained our door, so now we're going to get our conversion varnish ready to spray on the product. Again, stir, stir, stir. You need to stir, make sure it's really stirred well. You can always check by looking at the end of your stick. I got a little bit of flattening paste on the end of that stick. I'll stir till that flattening paste goes away. Mixed it to the product. Looks like we're good now. So now we're going to check for viscosity. Your viscosity is very important on your clears or paints. If it's too thin, you'll get runs, you won't get good coverage. If it's too thick, it won't flow, it'll orange peel, you'll get pinholes, and the viscosity is very important. You just want to make sure you get it right. I'm using the number 2 Zion viscosity cup here to check the viscosity. Okay, we're ready to check our viscosity now. You want to stir your Zion cup. You want to stir it to get all the air bubbles away from your cup. See, there's no air bubbles. None at all in there. Have your stopwatch ready. As soon as the bottom of your Zion cup comes out of the material, start your stopwatch. As soon as that stream is broken right there, that's when you stop your stopwatch. And that'll give you the thickness of your material. Okay. We're at 18 seconds, which is perfect for this. Now we're ready to mix it. After you check your viscosity, if it's too thick, say we needed this at 18. If it was 22 seconds, I would use a thinner or a retarder to thin it out a little bit. And that will help with the flow and get you back down to the viscosity you need to be at. Now we're getting ready to catalyze material. There's multiple catalysts available out there. This one here calls for the CXC 4000. Some of the paints have a weaker catalyst. Some of them may have a strong. Just read your TDS sheet and it will tell you what catalyst to use and how much to put in. This needs 1/4 ounce of catalyst. So I measured out 1/4 ounce. And that's going to be for 1 pint. Now 1 pound of varnish. You don't want to take this and just dump it in there. You want to stir it as you're putting it in. Almost like you're just cooking a roux. Just slowly pour it in. Stir as you go. If you just pour it in straight in and then start stirring, you'll shock the material and it won't do what it's supposed to do. Now we're ready for the cut gun. We're going to put our silver coat on our door. Now we're going to apply the silver coat to the door that we stained a few minutes ago. The edges, be sure you get the edges as good as you can, because if you don't, they're going to be rough and they need to be good and slick. Okay, we're getting ready to spray our silver. We're going to put a good coat. We're going 3.5 to 4 wet meals. And we'll go through how to check the meal in just a minute. Remember, do your edges real good. Spray it wet, even coat, 50% lap. I'm going to check the meals. That's the best meal gauge. There's some that look like credit cards, but those are really good. Get them from Paul Garner. Check the meals on the flat. Come to your paper. You got 3 meals. That's 3.5 meals there. Okay, our door is dry now. It's ready for sanding. Sanding is a very important step. If you don't sand it properly, you'll have bad adhesion. You'll have a real rough finish on top if you don't sand it, get it slick. And you need that scratch pattern from your sanding for the top coat to grab a hold to, so you have good adhesion. Always sand with the grain. If you don't sand with the grain, you'll get cross grains. We're sanding with 320 grit paper. Your edges. And that's it for the sanding. Okay, we finished our sanding. As you can see, it's full of white dust, full of it, which is good. That's what you want. Take a tack rag, wipe this down real good, get all this dust off. If you don't get it all off, you'll have trash in your finish, you'll have bad adhesion, and it won't look good. Muddy up your color. You want to get it as trash free as you can. Now we're ready for topping. We're using a self-seal system, which means you use the silver and the top coat is the same thing. Just put one on top of the other. If your gun's been sitting for a while, you're always going to go back and stir it. Stir, stir. You can never over stir it. Silver. You want to do your edges and your front, and you want the 3.5 to 4 mils just like you did on your silver. not laying up right, if it's too thick, which it could happen if you've been sitting in your gun there for a little while, just make sure you have a good looking piece of furniture on the top of it looks like glass. Now it's time for the fun part, cleaning our equipment. You're only as good as the equipment you use, so always keep it maintained well. Take this little cork cup off. Take the tip off. And I'm using MEK solvent to clean with. Just put it there, let it soak. Take your fluid control knob off and the spring. Just put it to the side. Don't put it in your chemical. You'll drive it. Spring it. Then you pull your trigger, pull your needle out, drop it in the fluid. Put this in there, let it soak for a few minutes. So depends on what all you got in it. I try to clean my gun after every use. That's what you really need to do. Got all kinds of little holes in here. You want to take a brush and get down in there the best you can. Clean those holes out. Because that's all about air. That'll stop your air movement if they're clogged up. And your fluid also. You got these little things here that are getting into the smaller holes. Two little holes right up there. Then take your brush, wet it, and go down in there and clean. You can see this one's pretty clean, but it's cleaned after every use. If you don't clean it after every use, you'll get buildup in here soon. The gun, you won't be able to fix it.
Okay, Randy, prior to finishing, tell me a little bit about surface prep.
Okay, your wood needs to be sanded properly, and it needs to be free of dust, free of any kind of machine marks or drag marks or anything like that. And it would be ideal for the moisture content to be between 6 to 8%.
Okay, Randy, talk to me a little bit about application and amount of material applied.
As we stated earlier, you need to apply 3.5 to 4 wet mils per coat. 3.5 to 4 wet mils is equivalent of 1 dry mil. You don't want to put no more than 4 dry mils on any product. If you do, you could get a multitude of things could happen, but the two main ones, you get a lot of hazing and you can get cracking in your finish due to the flexibility. The more you put on, the less flexible the coating becomes.
Randy, talk to me a little bit about flash times and dry times for coatings.
Always resort back to your technical data sheet for your flash times and your dry times. Always adhere to that because that's very important on your adhesion and the look of your product. Always go back to your technical data sheet. It will tell you there how to bond it. It's a good practice to bond everything, if it's water-based or solvent-based. Remember, safety is always first.
So Randy, let's talk a little bit more about viscosity again. We touched on it earlier, but let's tell me about why viscosity is important and why it should be checked prior to use of material.
Viscosity is very important. If it's too thin, you'll get sagging and running, and you won't get the proper millage that you need. And if it's too thick, it's the opposite. You won't get proper flow. You'll get craters, you'll get orange peel, and it'll hurt you on your drying time, plus you'll get more mils on the product than you need.
Randy, tell us once again, how do you check viscosity of the material?
Always refer back to your technical data sheet. It'll tell you which cup to use. You have 2, 3, 4s. You have there's all kinds of viscosity measuring devices out there, but your technical data sheet will tell you which one to use and how many and the time that it should take for that viscosity cup to empty.
Okay, Randy, let's talk a little bit more about spray application techniques. Can you walk us through once again on how best to hold the gun, what the lap of the gun should be, and proper spray techniques?
Yes. First, I want to show you some things you shouldn't do, that you should not do. You don't want to be right on the product or way away from the product. You want to be 6 to 8 inches away. You don't want to tilt your gun down or tilt your gun up. You want to go level with the surface that you're spraying. When you're spraying across, you start right on the outside and you go to the outside. You always stop on the outside of your product. Don't stop on the product. It'll cause a sag or a run. Don't use your wrist and make like a rocker effect. And you don't want to go real fast. Remember, you're 50% lap and stay straight. 6 to 8 inches away from the product, stay straight.
That's good information, Randy. So when you're spraying, if you spray the gun too close to the part, tell us a little bit what could happen to your pattern and what could happen to the part you're spraying if your gun's too close to the part.
If you're too close to the part, if it's stained, you'll be way too dark. You'll be puddling and running. Clear coast, you'll be running. It's just going to run right off the edge of the door.
If it's if it's too close, you're going to be sagging and running.
Right.
If it's too far away, if you're standing too far back, what can cause? What are some of the issues it can cause for doing that?
If you're spraying stain, your color won't be right. It'll be light. Plus, you'll get dusting or overspray with that too. Same applies to your clear coat. If you won't get the proper millage on, you won't get the proper flow. You'll get a lot of a dusty feel from the overspray.
And a little bit of orange peel and that type of
Yes.
stuff too. Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Randy.
Your spray pattern is very important also. Example right here. This is the bad spray pattern, a good spray pattern, and that's a good spray pattern. The spray patterns need to be right. If they're not, you can get multiple issues. You can get fingering of the product, running of the product, not enough product on. Just depends on what type of spray pattern you got, and it should cause a lot of issues.
Randy, let's talk a little bit about tailing issues and fingering, that type of thing with your tips. If you see that, what are some of the causes, and then how do you rectify that?
It comes from inadequate fluid delivery. You could cut your product, decrease the viscosity, or you could adjust your fluid pressures and remedy that.
Yeah, and also probably a good idea to look at cleaning the gun tips or filters also. That may help with that as well. So
Right.
if you have a heavy pattern or a heavy worn area, what would be some of the causes and the remedies for that?
Most likely it's your tip,
Uh-huh.
and a lot of that comes from when you clean it improperly. If you use something metal, razor blade or a pocket knife or something like that, just try to scrape the insides up. You'll cut pieces of that metal off, and you'll make little indentations, which you may not be able to see with your eye, but they're there. Best thing to use that is nylon or a brass brush.
Excellent. So Randy, let's talk a little bit more about your gun, and if we're having some issues and it's spitting, fluttering, if we're having more inconsistent spraying, what could be some more issues that you see? What could be some of the causes for that?
Your fluid pressure
Yep.
could not be right. You could have dirt in your tip. You could have dirt in your regulator, and just the gun overall, the tip, the cap, any of that stuff. If it's not clean, if the holes are clogged up, will cause that issue.
So best practice to clean.
Clean, clean, clean.
So Randy, what's some of the other responsibilities that an operator or sprayer should do and should be looking out for to make sure that he or she is utilizing and able to put out the best product?
First of all, cleanliness. Clean it. Make sure your guns are clean, your pumps are clean, your air lines don't have any leaks. It is clean. That you're actually spraying the proper material. And that's all falls on the operator. I mean, you're only as good as your equipment, and the operator needs to keep it clean and well maintained.
So it's up to the operator basically to make sure that everything is in proper working order prior to and at the end of each shift, right?
Right.
So, Ray, let's talk a little bit more about the adhesion and why that's important, and what can an employee do to best get the best practice.
Okay, adhesion, all adhesion is the bonding of the product to what's under it, where it won't come off. Sanding is very important, and the reason you sand is two purposes: to smooth the product out and to get scratch pattern in your finish. So when you spray it like top coat on top of silver, if you don't sand it, it's not going to bond. When you sand it properly, it grabs hold inside of those scratch patterns and gives you good adhesion.
Great. And let's talk a little bit more about the agitation of material as well. I know that's very important. And explain to everybody why agitation is so important.
Agitation is my pet peeve. You have to agitate. When you're using a product, it needs to be under agitation. Before you use the product, you need to make sure it's agitated properly. If you don't, pigments will fall to the bottom in a stain, and you won't get the proper color. Platinum paste will fall to the bottom in clear coats, and you won't get the proper sheen you want. And that could cause bad adhesion and everything too, because you don't get all the properties of the product.
Randy, let's talk a little bit about some troubleshooting aspects. If I'm getting some blistering on parts coming off of the top coat, or even off of sealer, what's some of the things that could be causing that, and what can we do to help either eliminate that or help with that?
Heat is usually the main culprit in blisters. And the way to fix the heat problem is turn your heat down. And flow issues, I mean, if you're too thick, you could get blistering, and you just need to thin the product down to its proper viscosity to get rid of that issue.
So the thickness of the coating, the viscosity of the product, and then the heat that's applied, those two are the biggest things that are causing that. What about if we're blooming, if the product is what we call blooming? What's some of the cause of that? What can we do to help eliminate bloom issues?
Once you get blooming, that comes from over-catalyzation. And the only way to get rid of it is to fix your material where the catalyzation is proper, like it's supposed to be.
Right. So the blushing is a different term. What's the difference between blushing and blooming? And if we're blushing, what do we do to correct that?
Blushing is like a little haze, and to correct that, your viscosity, we make it flow a little bit longer. So because your solvents aren't having time to get out, and you'll have that issue.
So you may need to retard the product some to allow it to stay open a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.